Presented by First Commonwealth Bank, WCCS, AM 1160 and FM 101.1. You want to talk to Bob Pollock? Give him a call right now, 479-1160 or 349-WCCS. That's 349-9227. Mr. Pollock is with us right now, as a matter of fact. Good morning.
Good morning.
What's going on out there in the world?
Well, we're transitioning to fall, aren't we?
We certainly are.
Finally.
And next week we'll really transition into fall. And then the frost is going to start, and that you have talked before about how that first frost, the first real good, hard killer frost, knocks down some of the pests that we might have bothering our plants and things of that nature. So we're anticipating that happening.
Yes, or at least they're trying to transition now, and you've probably noticed that with like cluster flies and
stink bugs,
and maybe some other beetles or insects that are adult in the adult stage that are looking for trying to get inside, looking for a place to overwinter.
Haven't seen ladybugs this year.
Yeah, and I haven't noticed any recently either. Yeah. I mean, I've seen them this summer, but not anywhere near.
They do run in cycles, don't they?
Yeah, their populations fluctuate just like all other insect populations do, and of course they're considered a beneficial insect that feeds on some of our soft-bodied pests like aphids and things like that. And so as those populations change, then their food source, when it's on decline, won't be as many of them, and vice versa. So that all keeps moving and changing.
We talked last week with somebody, I can't recall the specific plant that they were transplanting, but they were transplanting a rather large shrub, perhaps. And you talked about ideal times to transfer, and fall is one of those times, but you really prefer getting through the winter and right before blossoming time comes.
Yeah, you can. We like to let the leaves fall off plants, let them go dormant naturally first. That because they've shut down a lot of their normal processes, their respiration rate has gone down at that point, and so there's a lot less stress involved in removing roots from that plant, because invariably when you dig a plant, you're going to cut off some of the root system. So we're trying to minimize that as much as possible, as well as that stress on the plant. So that dormant season period is probably the best time to really move things around like that. And then that also gives them time. So depending on when you can get that done in the fall, you may, depending on soil temperatures and everything, get a little bit of new root growth still this fall. And then after winter's over and the soil starts to warm up again and the days get longer, then there'll start to be root activity on the plant before there'll be bud and leaf activity in the spring. So that kind of gives some opportunity for that plant to start to adapt and get used to its new location and start to grow again before we get into more stressful conditions.
Normally at this time of the year, we're looking out and we're seeing a big hillside. For instance, I'm looking at White's Woods right now, and it's generally still green.
It is.
The leaves have not changed color this year at all.
No, and we really just it hasn't been cool enough. We haven't had the right conditions yet, even though the days are getting shorter. And, of course, some plants have lost leaves at this point, and we're not going to get much of a show or a show at all out of them.
Yeah.
But now we're getting some cooler temperatures at night, and and slowly we're starting to cool down, that both soil temperatures and air temperatures, and that's going to transition here I suspect in the next week or two we'll see a lot of change.
That won't have an effect on next spring when they leaf back up, the fact that they held onto their leaves so long this year.
No, because they're still functioning. As long as those leaves are green, they're still, that plant's making its own food through photosynthesis, and they're going to just keep functioning until those conditions allow them and signal them to, I got to start bundling up for winter here.
They get their long winter's nap.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, those are some of the things that we notice as we look about outside. And meanwhile, You get inquiries into your office all the time on this topic or that. What are some of the things that people ask you at this time of the year at the office about?
Well, and some of that is just some things on pruning plants, getting them ready for winter, moving plants. Always get some questions on that.
Preparing their
some of these
their
insects, these
gardens for next year.
pesky nuisance insects that sometimes will barrage your house, and spiders. That's something that's really
Oh yeah, you get
Yeah.
spider inquiries.
yes. And I don't know. This year seem to be more numerous than many years, but just a lot of people bringing either photos or actual spiders in,
Wow,
concerned about them.
wow! I didn't realize that this was a big year for spideys.
But they must have. They're either more noticeable, or people were more sensitized to them for one reason or another. In most cases, they're not going to harm us. Occasionally, they might try to bite you, or depending on the type of spider it is and whether it has hairs, and other insects will do this as well, but the little hairs on their legs, sometimes those things can cause a dermatitis or a rash. If you come in contact with them, they can just irritate the skin.
They tickle.
So they're not actually biting, but they can be an irritant. And even some caterpillars with spines on them, those can have materials in there that can cause rashes or skin irritations. So some of those caterpillars that may look cute, those things are defensive mechanisms to help keep other insects and prey off of them, or at least cause them some pain and agony if they try to mess around with them. So
when the
just
spring
be careful of that.
Yeah, when the spring comes along and the snow melts, and people look out and they see that underneath that snow there have been tunnels made, and now those tunnels are big mounds from the moles that have been moving about underneath their lawns. They say to themselves, I wonder if I could have done something about that last fall to prevent that happening over the winter. Not really a whole lot in terms of that, is there, because of the grub population?
Yeah, but they also eat other soil insects as well, so earthworms, and it's not just grubs. And I think at one time that was the thinking, if you have moles, then that equals grubs because there's a population. Well, they found that they will eat those, but in turn they will also eat earthworms and other soil insects that are occupying that space. So they're tunneling through there, trying to find their food, and they do a lot of exploration. It's amazing. They're very efficient earth movers for their size. They can move a lot of soil and make those tunnels. And if they find something, fine, they'll feed on it. If they don't, then they'll abandon that and move to the next one. So it can be a little challenging to eliminate those. Sometimes they eliminate themselves because there's not enough food in an area, and so they just move on. And a lot of times that's what happens. They'll be there, make a mess, and then they'll move out.
Now, I know there are these things that people stick in their ground that are supposed to vibrate and chase them away, and even if they did work, all they would be doing would be chasing to another section of your lawn. Yeah,
they're kind of act as repellents. If they work, they act as a repellent and move them out of that area, but it may not move them that far.
It's like the old Japanese beetle trap. What you're
Yes.
basically doing is attracting in Japanese beetles.
You're bringing them in.
All right, so not the best planning at all.
But the physical harpoon type traps are supposed to be the most effective. However, they do take some effort and work.
And I just can't see that actually being effective.
And it does.
It seems quite medieval.
Yeah, well, it works if it gets them. If it spears them, it works. If you get it on an active tunnel or runway, that's the key. So you kind of have to flatten everything down, see what pops back up. They have created some earthworm type, and it's actually like a little rubber earthworm, but they have a toxin in there, so you can put those in those tunnel areas.
So the
where
old
they
poison
are. So it's a
earthworm?
bait. Yeah.
Got to get me some poison earthworms. That's beautiful.
Before
you go, what?
Yeah, before we go, there's been a Pennsylvania Pollinator Protection Plan developed, and currently they are seeking public input on that document. There's kind of 4 parts to it, and it's all online, but part of it's best practices for beekeepers, best practices for pesticide use, best practices for forage and habitat, and an overall plan for Pennsylvania. So the federal government is requiring the states each state to develop their own pollinator protection plan. And so this is the draft form of that has been prepared, and they are seeking input. So you can go online and seek it and follow up on that if you're interested in that and want to read that over and then make comments on that and suggestions for how they can improve it. That's what they're looking for.
Okay, so what's the web address?
If you just go on your search engine and type in Pennsylvania Pollinator Protection Plan, it'll come up. It's at extension.psu.edu.
Just Google Pennsylvania Pollinator Protection Plan.
Yes.
There's all kinds of P's there. The 4 P's.
There's about 4 of them there.
There you go. All right. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
He's Bob Pollock, the Pennsylvania Pollinator Protection Plan. Popeye. It's Indiana in the Morning, presented by First Commonwealth Bank, WCCS AM 1160 and FM 101.1.